Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espey.
Well, first of my good evening. Welcome to the programme here on Manx Radio. I hope your Monday's going well so far. We've got the main news for you before 5:30. So coming up, Appeal Commissioner has raised what she describes as serious concerns over governance and transparency within the local authority. We'll have more on that in a couple of minutes. Also tonight, just how much influence does social media have on political debate over here on the island? A falling birth rate and ageing population is something that one politician warns is going to be a major demographic challenge. And some good news for drivers. That road past Whitehoe has opened fully. There is going to be some more work on it though in April. We'll bring you all those details, the weather, the general traffic and travel as well. And if you'd like to text, it's 166 177. We'll start with a roundup of the main news headlines, first of all, with Amy Fastamai.
Appealtown Commissioners raised serious concerns about governance and transparency within the local authority. Katrina Baptist alleges inaccurate meeting minutes, poor communication and decisions not being properly recorded.
It seems that the town clerk holds the keys to the kingdom of Peel, and if he doesn't want it to happen, it's either misrepresented or not recorded at all.
The clerk and board have been invited to respond. Russian MHK Michelle Hayward has described online abuse she's received as tiresome. She says discussion is not always honest and genuine and respectful, and challenging that behaviour can provoke further abuse.
I've had threats against me and I've had threats against my children as well. And I really kind of wish these people peace. I wish that they'd find something else to do with their lives that was more meaningful.
Restrictions in place on the old Castletown Road have been lifted ahead of schedule. Traffic's now able to once again travel in both directions past the Whitehoe Industrial Estate. The closure's been blamed for an increase in congestion in the capital. Southern Young Farmers have triumphed at this year's Young Farmers Concert. Chairman Caesar Kermode says the win is the icing on the cake for the club, which is celebrating its 80th anniversary.
To be chairman of it on the 80th anniversary and win the concert, it's like all your moons and stars align, and you couldn't get it any better, really. No.
Turning to international news now, and the British Prime Minister says the UK must be prepared for the Iran war to continue for some time, despite Donald Trump insisting they want to make a deal. The US President claims strong and productive talks have been held, but the Iranian parliament speakers called reports of discussions fake news. The US Transport Secretary says they'll investigate whether air traffic control staffing was an issue after a plane hit a fire truck at a New York airport. A pilot and co-pilot were both killed following the incident at LaGuardia. And it's reported the BBC's called it factually incorrect to say It Takes Two hosts Fleur East and Jeanette Manrara have been sacked. The Sun claims both have been let go of presenting the Strictly spin-off. The BBC says plans for the show will be revealed soon. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with the news in full at 6.
Thank you very much indeed, Amy. The weather now brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Cloudy. It is going to be mostly dry tonight, though. Moderate southwest winds. They will increase fresh to strong throughout the evening. Temperatures will be around about 10 Celsius. Then tomorrow it's going to be cloudy. Outbreaks of rain for much of the day. The rain will clear to showers later on in the afternoon. Fresh to strong southwest winds, and top temperatures again tomorrow will be around 10. And then again on Wednesday it's going to be quite windy. Sunny intervals, though. Scattered showers, some sleet or hail, can you believe it, over the hills, and highest temperatures will be around 8.
If you're looking for supply-only double or triple glazed units, make sure you visit the Manx Glass and Glazing showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate or call 674 573.
It's just gone 4 minutes past 5 here on Update. Well, the main story that we've been talking about today is the fact that Appealtown Commissioner has raised what she describes as serious concerns about governance and transparency within the local authority. Katrina Baptist claims meeting minutes are inaccurate, communication is poor, and some decisions are not being properly recorded. In a video on social media that she released last night, she says she's being shut down at every turn and that missing records have led to accusations of dishonesty.
Transparency, in my opinion, is also badly lacking. Minutes are often repeatedly inaccurate. Some things are recorded inaccurately, some things are missing entirely. Sometimes we get the chance to right those wrongs, but a lot of the time we don't, and that means you don't get to see what's really going on. I've been trying to get them to record the meetings and issue accurate minutes. Ironically, Those discussions haven't been minuted, and I'm being blocked from raising it again. I get shut down at every turn. The beach stage is a good example. We discussed this last month at the board and had a vote, 6-1 in favour of the stage. I left the room immediately with the media that were present and did an interview. I invited the clerk and the chair to take part in that interview, but they didn't want to. This month, that vote is missing from the minutes, and when I raised it, they claim that never happened. So that means that not only me, but some of my fellow commissioners and the media that were there are being accused of lying, and it feels like a big setup. I desperately want to represent you well, but it's such a struggle. Ideas, decisions and plans are neither recorded or acted upon. I also believe that there are sometimes conflicts of interest in the room that are either not declared or simply ignored. To put it simply, I have the same concerns surrounding governance, accountability, transparency and delivery that I did before I began, but I'm seemingly being blocked from improving them. It seems that the town clerk holds the keys to the kingdom of Peel, and if he doesn't want it to happen, it's either misrepresented or not recorded at all. The chair is either unwilling or for some reason unable to deal with it, and these are the things that you need to know.
So that is Peel Town Commissioner Katrina Baptist in that video she released last night. We did have a look and we did find the authority hasn't published any meeting minutes since November last year. We have invited the Clerk of Peel Town Commissioners and the board for comment. There will be more on this story in Breakfast tomorrow morning. 7 minutes past 5 now, and the Russian MHK Michelle Haywood has described the online abuse she's received as tiresome. Speaking on Man in Line at lunchtime, she says social media, especially Facebook, plays a significant role in shaping public debate here on the island. However, Dr. Haywood believes discussions are not always honest, genuine or respectful, and says challenging that behaviour can sometimes lead to further abuse.
I've had threats against me and I've had threats against my children as well.
I mean, what would provoke anybody? What must be going on in somebody's mind to think that that's a good thing to do?
I genuinely don't know. I'm stumped as to why on an island that has so much to offer, our communities are so busy, you know, there's so much going on in the arts and sports, and there's such a beautiful country to go and explore and to take advantage of those amazing views and landscapes that we have. Why anyone feels the need that they have to sit in and just exist in the little sort of colony that's online, and it's self-perpetuating as well. It feeds. You can see the bubbles grow as it acts like an echo chamber, and I really, you know, I kind of wish these people peace. I wish that they'd find something else to do with their lives that was more meaningful. Have you ever considered butting out yourself and just thinking, I'm not going to go on Facebook anymore, I'm not going to interact with people who are going to insult me? I've stepped back quite a lot from that, but when I published that I was on my MHK's page, that actually I retain editorial control over that page, and I was going to block comments or hide comments from people if they were just being abusive, and I wasn't going to interact. That sparked a whole load of discussion about whether I had the right to block comments. Of course I have the right not to sit there and be abused. If you want to discuss policies, fine. If you want to discuss political decisions, fine. If you want to be abusive, not fine. It happens in the UK, doesn't it? It certainly happens in America. So is this just a consequence of modern day politics? I think it kind of. I feel everyone got angrier after COVID when you saw what governments. Yeah, I do. I think when you saw what governments could do and how much they could impact on your lives and how much they could shut down what your day-to-day activities were, and we were all sent home, and you know, we were only allowed into the supermarket 2 meters apart, and things were being rationed. I think that scared people, and it made a lot of people feel unsafe in the life that they thought that they had, and the privileges that they thought they had in life.
That is the Russian MHK, Dr. Michelle Haywood, who was on Man in Line at lunchtime. You can listen back to that as a podcast at the Manx Radio website. Now, a politician who studied the island's population says falling birth rates and an ageing demographic are becoming increasingly extreme challenges. MLC Paul Crane has tracked demographic trends for many years. He previously sat on a Tynwald committee examining how to balance the population. He says the lack of younger residents could have significant long-term impacts on the island's economy and public Public Services. He's been talking to political correspondent Phil Gaughan.
We've been flatlining for 15 years here now, and what I regarded as vulnerabilities in 2016, the imbalance of declining births, the imbalance of the island losing its young people, especially in the early 20s, and then the imbalance of the aged population here, which puts us up in the top 10 population of the world in terms of percentage living here over the age of 65. So we've got those sort of imbalances. I was calling those vulnerabilities 10 years ago. Now I'm calling them extremes.
So what's changed then? I mean,
it's kind of strange. Some people say the population hasn't changed. Well, in terms of the overall numbers, maybe it hasn't, but births 10 years ago were down, but now they're down very nearly 45% in 15 years. The births have gone down and down and down. The 20 to 24 age group, we're still seeing them, and to some extent to the 25-29 age group, we're seeing them far more leave than arriving. So we're losing our young people. We've got an ageing population. We haven't got a lot of retirement migration going on in recent years, but what we have got is enormous numbers of people in the late 50s, early 60s. They're going to turn 65 within the next 10 years or so. And that takes you back to what caused this. Most people would say, the births have started falling after 2010, and it's about house prices, and it's about childcare prices and things like that. And that's undoubtedly part of the picture, but when you look at it more closely and see that the Isle of Man's peak in population, 2010, 45% almost decline in births since then. Jersey's population, the births, peaked in 2012, and they're almost on the same trajectory downwards. They've had continuous decline since then, but they're running sort of 2 years behind us. And then you broaden the look and you say, well, the Isle of Man's births peaked 2010. Between 2008 and 2012, the births peaked in England and Wales, in Scotland, in Northern Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, in Jersey and Guernsey, as well as the Isle of Man. And when you understand that, you're not just looking for things that happened here. This is much wider.
That is the MLC Paul Crane talking to Phil there. Hear much more about that on Agenda at 5:30. Well, spring may bring the familiar sight of lambs in the fields, but for farmers, it's also a time of intense work and concern over potential livestock attacks by dogs. In the UK, new legislation's been introduced which gives police and courts stronger powers to deal with such incidents. But over here, proposals to tighten those laws protecting livestock weren't progressed more than a year ago. Sarah Comish from the Manx National Farmers Union says that is a source of real frustration, and she's been talking to Simon Richardson.
This is still a serious problem on the Isle of Man. Years ago, obviously, we were on a farm and we experienced it a couple of times. Really distressing. Farmers are tough, they have to be, but that doesn't mean that they don't have feelings about, seeing animals in that kind of distress. It's pretty awful.
We've seen the UK introduce new legislation only this week, but no sign of us doing the same.
No, well, we've been campaigning for 2 or 3 years now. We did all the preparatory work with the Chief Government Vet. She was very helpful. We spoke to the police, and then politically it was decided to shelve it. So we've now been left really far behind. We could have had this in place before the UK legislation came in. I'm really disappointed that it was felt that livestock obviously don't seem to have the same value as domestic pets.
A point to stress is that it seems the vast majority of dog owners spoken to during the survey would actually fully support everything you're calling for.
Yeah, and that was a really important part of surveying dog owners, was that we needed to see that the general public could see that there was an issue here and then it needed addressing. The current legislation is very difficult to prosecute somebody under. It's very difficult to gather evidence or proof that something's happened. Quite often farmers find the incident after the dog has left the area, and that's very difficult for everyone to work on. But in the UK now, they'll be able to gather evidence and they'll be able to seize dogs for evidence as well. And I think that just makes it so much more robust. Hopefully, it would give the police those powers to be able to investigate cases properly. It's very, very rare that they get to court. Quite often, there'll be an offer of compensation if you know who's done it and they've admitted it. Sometimes that doesn't get honoured, which is quite frustrating. We speak to our membership every year and say, please report every single case, every single incident you come across, report it to the police, get an incident number. That's going to give us that data that we need to prove that this really does need to be improved legislation.
That is Sarah Comish from the Manx National Farmers Union. Well, we know that DEFRA is set to begin consulting on potential new laws to address livestock worrying, and it's expected to provide an opportunity to contribute to the development of proposed measures to protect livestock from dog attacks. But the one thing Sarah Comish also said was that police say that all attacks on livestock should be reported to them. It's just gone 5:15.
Manx Radio Travel, serviced by Quayside Tyres.
I think we all did a little bit of a jig when we knew that the old Castletown Road at the White Hoe has now reopened completely. There is still going to be some work needed next month. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Other things to look out for still, those temporary lights on Cool Road in Braddon near the Business Park, and on Braddon Road just up from Braddon Bridge. In Castletown, there are lights between King William's College and the airport. That's for water main works. In Laxey all week, temporary lights on New Road at the old Laxey Hill Junction, 24 hours a day. And just a reminder, in Douglas there will be temporary lights again tomorrow on Lord Street. That's from 9:30 to 3:30. It's at the junction with Barrack Street for roof repairs, and Barrack Street will also be closed during that time. Airport, everything looking good down there, and at the steam packet, the Maximus due into Douglas at 6:15. It's scheduled to go out to Heysham again at 7:15.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by
Quayside, 664417.
Head to Quayside Tyres and Service Centre on South Quay Industrial Estate.
Quayside!
So it's 16 minutes past 5, and we just heard about that old Castletown Road section reopening ahead of schedule on Wednesday. This is a work that's been taking place by the White Hoe Industrial Estate, and it has caused quite a few traffic problems in and around Douglas in recent weeks. Lewis is with me just now. Lewis, just take us back and remind us why this closure was needed in the first place.
Yeah, so this was from the junction at White Hoe down to the Nunnery, which is, of course, a major route in and out of the capital. And this was while Manx Utilities carried out essential refurbishment work on wastewater infrastructure in the area. The authority has been replacing a large access cover located above an underground chamber, and because of the size, depth and position of that chamber within the roadway, the MUA said a full road closure was necessary. Restrictions had been partially lifted last week, with traffic heading into Douglas being able to head one way past the closure point.
And I know I mentioned the sort of traffic disruption. We saw queues of traffic all the way up Richmond Hill. We know it's a bit of a snarl up around Tesco. Why are the restrictions being lifted now then?
So two-way traffic was due to be reinstated on Wednesday, but in an update this afternoon, Manx Utilities said tests of the newly placed concrete at midday showed it had reached the required strength for the road to reopen safely. They originally said 4:30 it would be open by. We understand restrictions were actually lifted slightly sooner, around 3 o'clock.
And as I just mentioned in the traffic there, we know there is going to be further work needed.
Yeah, that's right. So Manx Utilities has confirmed a short period of full road closure will be required next month to safely progress the Queg wastewater network upgrade. The authority says ground conditions identified during excavation mean a temporary full closure is necessary to ensure safe working conditions for the public and construction teams. To minimise disruption during peak travel periods, it says the closure has been scheduled over 2 weekends during the Easter school holidays. That's the 11th to the 12th of April and the 18th and 19th of April. Single lane traffic management will continue outside of these dates where conditions allow, with access via Port Sodrick. And it says a further 3-day period of single lane traffic management will be required at a later date between 9:30 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, with arrangements removed overnight. And the MUA says those dates will be confirmed in coordination with the Department of Infrastructure, and access for residents and businesses will be maintained throughout.
Lewis, thank you very much indeed. You can find the full details as ever on the Manx Radio website. I think it's fair to say there were a few little whoops here in the newsroom because some people do use that route, so we should have videoed that really. It would have been good, wouldn't it?
It would have.
Yeah. 19 minutes past 5 now. You might have heard the news over the weekend of a fire at the Northern Civic Amenity site at Balladool. Now this was because a flare had been incorrectly disposed of in burnable waste, causing the Isle of Man Fire Service to be called out to the site early on Saturday morning. Well, Paul Hampton owns Harbour Marine Services Services in Castletown, and they offer a free flare disposal service.
The disposal is obviously they're quite dangerous, as sort of pointing out what happened with the amenity site. We've had an uncontrollable fire, but a lot of people don't know how to get rid of them. So in conjunction with the Isle of Man Coast Guard, Harbour Marine Services have a drop-off facility, so we can take in flares that are in good condition. We store them in our on-site containers, and then they are exchanged with the Isle of Man Coast Guard, and they're taken to a site where they're stored, then disposed of at some point during the year. They're disposed of through a controlled burn. So it's a safe disposal route. It's a free service. It just gets them off the street really safely.
Yeah, I mean, do you see a lot of people taking you up on that service then?
Yes, quite a lot. A lot of people come in and ask, how do you get rid of them? So we sort of offer that service free of charge, just purely to help out within the sort of boating community.
Yeah, so I suppose with yourself working with the Coast Guard, you can kind of see, what would happen if it went wrong. So it's good to have that route that people can come and get rid of them safely then.
Yes, yeah, it prevents people using them sort of around Halloween or a bonfire night, where they can be accidentally set off, and you could cause an incident where the Coast Guard lifeboat and everything are called out because somebody set off a parachute flare or a distress flare.
Yeah.
Then it helps out.
That is Paul Hampton, who owns Harbour Marine Services in Castletown. You can find out more about that fire that happened on Saturday morning on the Manx Radio website. There was also a warning about disposal of batteries as well, and making sure that was done safely to prevent similar incidents from happening again. 21 minutes past 5. Well, FC Isle of Man manager Rick Holden has praised his side for digging in despite losing to Cheadle Town in the NWCFL Premier Division on Saturday. Jacob Crooks scored the opener within 20 minutes, but the Ravens then lost 2-1 on the night, which means they are still not safe from relegation. Holden has been speaking to the club's media, as Darren Timpson reports.
It was a frustrating night for FC Isle of Man, whose dominance in the opening periods was undone when referee Lewis Mason gave a penalty to Cheadle Town on the stroke of half-time. Callum Sherry was shown a red card for bringing down Sheriff and G in the box, with Oliver Kvartnik then converting from the spot. Holden says he wanted his team to still go for the win in the second half, despite going down to 10 men.
I mean, the lads really dug in second half, didn't they? And I went for the attacking mode. Said to the lads right at the beginning of the match, in the changing room, we want to go and win the game, not just let the season peter out. So we did go for it. I mean, we battered them for 30 minutes and should have been well clear. Then fell for a sucker punch with the penalty and the sending off, which was unfortunate. But we still went for it. We didn't want to sit in and just battle away for a point. We wanted to attack, so that's why I went 3 at the back and tried to go 3-3, but obviously it sits into a 5 at times. But we couldn't get the winner, and then this neat one at the end, and we still couldn't get an equaliser. But it's a good performance. I mean, some performances were outstanding as well, But, I mean, they were delighted at the end to beat 10 men. I mean, we've managed to really, an old Joe Royal phrase of snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And we've done it on a lot of occasions by letting teams off the hook. We've battered them, and goalies are selling themselves here. I mean, it's give me a new contract, please. I mean, their keeper made some great saves. Mathematically, you can say we're safe, and just don't want the season to peter out. So we're going to have to attack and get some wins under our belt. So that's what we're going to do. So if they perform like that, they will get wins, regardless of what the opposition are doing.
Holden then gave his views on the red card decision.
It's almost trying nowadays, if you're going to get sent off for trying to do a last-ditch tackle, the referee interprets it to it's denying a goal-scoring opportunity. You might as well say to your defenders, if we're beating someone as much as we're dominating them, and they get a chance one-on-one through with the keeper and you're behind him, do not touch him, let him score, because then we'll keep 11 men on the field and overwhelm them second half. But it's a double punishment for us. It's a penalty which they score and we lose a man.
FC Isle of Man will be back in action against City of Liverpool at the Bowl next weekend. Kick-off is at 6 p.m.
Darren Timpson with that report. We'll be back to Darren for the rest of today's sports news in just a moment. But in the past half hour, it has been confirmed that 20-year-old Rhys Stevenson will make his first appearance at the TT this year, marking the start of a new chapter in his young career. It's a programme that's going to be focused solely on the superbike class. He'll ride the Triumph Daytona 660, a machine he knows well, as part of a measured, learning-led approach, apparently, to his first campaign on the mountain course. We'll bring you more details on that as we go through the week. But Sport On Update brought to you by the Print Shed, and here's Darren.
Faster Maya, and we'll start in football, where the first contender for the E-Cup FA Cup final has been confirmed. Corinthians booked their place after beating Peel 3-2 at Bala-Fletcher. However, it wasn't without stoppage time drama, as Dan Simpson scored the crucial winner in the 95th minute. The Whites will play the winners of St Mary's and Russian United, with that fixture scheduled to take place this Saturday. Russian beat Onken 2-0 in the remaining quarter-final. Onto the Canada Life Premier League, where St John's, Union Mills and Ramsey all picked up victories. Meanwhile, relegation-threatened Foxdale picked up a point against Ayr. In the Arden and Druggen Division 2, Colby beat St George's, while Governors drew 3-3 with Pulrose. On to hockey, where Backers secured 2 men's titles at the weekend. Backers A won the men's Premier League with a 6-1 victory over Harlequins. Backers B will crown the men's Division 1 winners with a 3-0 victory over Valkyries B. Meanwhile, every division should have a winner next weekend as the league season comes to an end on Saturday. Castletown could win the Ladies Premier League if they beat Harlequins. Valkyries B and Backers B are in contention for the Ladies Division 1, while Ramsey B and Valkyries C will battle for the Ladies Division 2. In the Men's Division 2, Backers, Colts, Vikings C and Backers C could all lift a trophy, with 3 points separating first and third with 2 games left. And in rugby, Douglas have slipped to 6th in the Regional 2 Northwest after narrowly losing to Widnes. They were beaten 32-31 but did manage to pick up 2 bonus points. However, their playoff hopes have taken another dent. Meanwhile, there was a joy for Vagabonds, who were up to 3rd in the County 3 ADM Lancashire Cheshire Minor Conference League. They beat Colden and Nelson 26-24 to win their 3rd game of the season. Vaggers Ladies also claimed a big away win to Aldwinians in the NC2 North-South. They won 38-10. And Southern Nomads claimed a narrow victory over Ramsey as they won 12-8 in the Manx Shield.
Darren, thank you very much indeed. That is pretty much all from Update this evening. Thank you so much indeed for your company. As ever, you can find out much more about all tonight's top stories on the Manx Radio website. If you'd like to comment on some of them as well, you can join us on social media too. Coming up next, it is that agenda programme with Phil Gaughan. Tonight, before becoming an MLC, Paul Crane, as we heard, was a geographer. And judging by his latest publication, he still is. So what exactly is a population atlas, and why does this updated edition paint an increasingly worrying picture of the island's ageing population? That's coming up just after this programme at 5:30. Chris Kinney will be here at 6 then with Greatest Hits. At 9, it's Time for Brass with Ian Cottier, who's celebrating a very special birthday this week, incidentally. And at 10, Dave Moore will be here with After Hours. So whatever you're doing this evening, have a good one. Enjoy that drive home if you've got to go past White Hoe. And Update will be back with you at 5 p.m. tomorrow.